Thank you for joining me today. This is Tony, the Geeky Agent, like I mentioned, from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, in the furthest southeast corner of Hamilton here in Binbrook. Today, we're going to talk about real estate auctions. It's something that's in the news on and off. You've probably seen it lately. People are calling for more transparency in real estate in the hopes that that will somehow control the runaway prices in the real estate industry. So we're going to talk with some friends and colleagues of mine from On the Block Realty, Daniel Steinfeld, and maybe joined by his wife, Katie. She's running around the house, managing the menagerie at the house, so maybe she will or maybe she won't chime in. But they've both been involved in pioneering the auction system here in Ontario. So they've actually carried out a number of real estate auctions for properties, one just recently with a friend of mine in Kingston who's been on the show before, Jessica Hellard, and went very well. So they're going to just chat with them, see how this works, when does it apply, is it really going to help control pricing, like keep prices down, or is it going to disadvantage sellers in that respect or not? Just generally speaking, how it works, how it got started, and sort of all the technicalities. It'll be very quick, about 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, depending on what we end up talking about. But hopefully it'll be very informative too. If you have any questions in the live feed, please feel free to type them in the comments below, and we'll try to get to them. There is a bit of a delay. So if you are watching on Facebook, there is a little bit of delay between the broadcast and it showing up on Facebook or on a live stream, wherever you are. So we might take a minute or two to get to your question, but we try our best. And if you are watching this later and it's not live, feel free to put your questions in the comments below and we'll try to circle back and answer them as well. So I'm just going to bring Daniel in from the waiting room. He is joining the meeting. There he is.
All right.
And we're live with Daniel. So I gave you a very nice intro. I didn't say anything bad at all.
Now's the time. Now's the time.
Now is the time, yes. I wouldn't say it behind your back. If I had to say it, I'd say it now.
Exactly. Right on.
But no. I said I did let everybody know that you're with On the Block Realty, yourself and your wife Katie, start up the Brokerage. And again, you've been pioneering basically the auction system in Ontario, sort of inventing the wheel in a lot of ways. I know I spoke with you guys originally at least 2 years ago, probably a bit more maybe, when I came out to see you guys when you were sort of getting this whole thing started. And I know you've streamlined it since then, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But really, what's your background? Like, how long have you been in real estate? What was the impetus to get On the Block started? Like, and maybe like why auctions? Like, what was the whole sort of motivation from the beginning to get this thing going?
Yeah. Well, myself, I've been in real estate now about 7 years, give or take. Katie a bit longer. She's been about 10 or 11 years. We've both been with different brokerages, have gone down the road of seeing how it's done in a lot of different places. My background before this was all over the place: finance, sales. I worked for the Argos for 10 years, so different world prior to this. But in real estate, really what led to On the Block starting was, like a lot of people out there, whether you're a realtor or someone who's trying to buy real estate, there's been a lot of frustration for a very long time for buyers in the bidding wars and all the stuff that now again is maybe it never hasn't been a hot button issue in media, but it's definitely a big topic now in Ontario again, where transparency and the ability to know more information, or the information you feel would be helpful to make an informed decision when purchasing a home, it's a frustrating regulatory environment that everybody subscribed to, and it leads to some frustrated situations. And so for us, we actually saw a story that a lot of people had seen back at the end of 2016 on CBC Marketplace. And it was uncovering the ugly 0.10 or 0.01% of realtors out there and some of the stuff that gets done. But they brought up in that story the way it's done in Australia, which is auctions. And part of their story was indirectly asking, well, why can't it be done that way here?
Right.
And we sort of looked at each other and said, well, yeah, why can't it be done here? And henceforth was the journey from there. I guess we took a good amount of time doing our research, talking to the appropriate people, and what was an idea became a platform, which became a brokerage, which that was really the vehicle initially just to house the auction platform. But since then, it's really grown into life
Mhm.
for us has been the brokerage, and the auction is a nice part of that continues today.
Mhm. And that's kind of the way I sort of explain it to people too, is that you don't do all your business by auctions. Like that's just
No.
one of the tools that you use that's available to home sellers. There, like, we can sell it the way that everybody else is selling it, but here's another tool that we can look at doing it, and it will again depend on the seller situation and stuff. But I agree. Like I've been in. I'll be finishing 10 years in October, I believe. It's hard to keep track. Some days it feels like 50, but we all saw those stories too, especially in realtor community. Obviously those stories hit home pretty well, because we all have stories about, like, in whatever industry you're in, you always have stories about the shifty people in that industry doing things, right? Everybody seems to know who they are, but that's kind of the way it goes. But dealing with in 2017, the crazy market that we had then, and then for the past year or so, the buyer remorse issue is huge, because like I said, you're taking out buyers, and you're, normally you would go out, you negotiate an offer like on non-crazy seller market times. With a seller, you have a chance to look at a bunch of properties, and you sort of know what the seller's looking for in terms of the list price, and you can kind of negotiate there, look at comparables, and do all that, do a home inspection, do your financing, and all that sort of stuff. Crazy things that we used to throw
Who knew
into
we'd be able
offers.
to do some due diligence on a property?
Yeah, who figured, right? Or at this point, if you're doing them, you're doing them ahead of time, and you might be doing 5 home inspections on houses that you never get, because you're just prepping for the competition, and you're losing out time after time and again, thinking that you know what you're doing. And even when you do win, there's a lot of questions on the buyer's mind of like, well, we went sort of guns blazing because we wanted to win this house because we've been trying so hard. But, did I outbid the last guy by $300,000 or $50,000 or something? Like there's that little remorse thing. But with the auction system that you have set up, that issue's not really there. Right.
Exactly.
So how does it work? So if I'm a home seller and I say, you know what, I want to pursue this auction system. How does it get set up? And I guess like coming offer day, like what does it look like? Like how does that work? Because we're used to watching movies with the guy standing at the front with the gavel saying raise your paddles, and like screaming back and forth at people like, hey, do I have 500 once, twice, 3 times, all that sort of stuff. So I'm presuming this is a little bit more structured, a little bit calmer than that.
A little different. I can tell you, full disclosure, no one in our organization can talk any faster than I am right now. So none of that happens. But we have built in the ability to do the live stuff if ever somebody really wanted that. But I think, I guess on that side of things, one of the big differences between here and Australia is, we want to adhere to a climate that changes. So we don't want to be outside. We want accessibility for people everywhere to be able to bid from wherever they are. So this was built as an online platform. And to answer your question, the easiest way to put it is it's exactly like what people are used to. Every part of the process, the listing, the marketing, the showings, the MLS, everything lives the exact same way as what people would be used to with an offer date or with a traditional real estate sale, with the one massive difference being that actual process of coming up with a price and the actual day of sale, which again is similar to an offer date. It's just the process itself is fully transparent, and allows everybody to know what's happening in real time through the online platform that we've got. So the auction, it operates very similar. If people are familiar with eBay or any other online auction platform, simplest way to put it is it's like eBay for real estate. So it's a lot more sophisticated from making sure it follows regulations and making sure that it protects privacy and all those sorts of things. But at its core, it looks and feels a lot like an eBay kind of an auction platform.
Okay. So you got like a starting price, I imagine. Like you sort of come up with like, we think that we're starting at $650,000, whatever it might be. And then, so you've got potential buyers working with their agents and stuff. So do they, like normally we'd register our offers ahead of time. If we have an interested party who's got a signed offer, we'd register ahead of time. So I'm presuming they register ahead of time. Is the auction itself visible publicly or just to the people who are participating?
It's visible publicly, so it has proven to be a bit of a spectator sport for the ones we've done recently. We normally see about 500 to 1,000 people just sitting there and watching the screen to see the price, which is great. And yeah, the registration, it's a little bit different from, I guess, what people would be used to if people have participated in an offer date and you have to register an offer to say, I'm submitting an offer, or you do it with your offer.
Right.
On the platform, you still register as a bidder,
Right.
which creates a bidder profile. However, the difference is it doesn't obligate you to bid. So for example, if I know there's a property and the bidding starts at $700,000, and I know my maximum on this property is going to be $750,000, and when I log into the auction, the bidding's already at $770,000. Just because I registered doesn't mean I have to put in something.
Sure.
It's now, to your earlier point, like it allows a buyer to know, you know what, it got too expensive for me. There's a real person out there bidding more than I was willing to. I can comfortably walk away. I won't waste my night. Right. It sucks, but in a weird way, it's a better version of sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not waiting around till midnight to find out that you
exactly
lost.
Like sometimes you probably dealt with situations where you're waiting to hear and you never do. Like it's just the time elapses and you're like, I guess I didn't get it. Right. They never answered me.
And when you know what, from the listing side, I have sympathy for agents. Like we do get very busy out here in Toronto, in Hamilton area. We do see properties with 20, 30 offers on them. But I know out in the Toronto way, it's even worse. And I can't imagine, having to deal with like 60 offers on a property and then trying to get back to everybody and in the same night to let them know, like, hey, sorry, you didn't quite get it, kind of thing. So yeah, and at the same time, still trying to negotiate with like maybe the 2, 3, 4, 5 top offers, and and getting a million phone calls, that kind of thing. So I totally understand it from that perspective. Yeah. So when you register, and like you said, you've got your price range to go at. So when you're putting in your bids, I know some type of bids you have like set plateaus. So like every new offer has to be 5,000 more than the last offer, or is it pretty much wide open? If I showed up and I knew you started at 750, I could just give you 850 right off the start, kind of thing.
It's kind of, the answer is yes to both of those questions. I think the only thing that is restricted is we do get questions, well, can I go up by $1? Like, can this thing inch up $1 at a time? That is restricted from the perspective that there is a minimum increment to the bid. It is based on the price at which a property's at. So a $2 million property might have larger increments than a $300,000 property. Sure. Generally speaking, it's about 1,000 at a time as a minimum increment. Right. But if somebody, to your point, has a high maximum, they can enter that right out of the gate, and that's actually protected and kept confidential to the point where they're only bidding up to the minimum they need to be at to be in the lead. And then if anybody subsequent to that outbids them, it'll automatically outbid people up to their maximum. Yeah, and
I've seen that on other sort of auction type sites like that. It'll automatically, like you said, add in that minimum increment up to your max, and then just keep you going, kind of thing. So for the buyers who are getting in there, because like it's a little bit different than buying like me buying like a comic book on an auction, right? Like you could get in there and just start bidding who wants to buy this piece of artwork, and it's just about the money. With real estate, there's closing dates. Again, there might be conditions involved and stuff. Do you sort of work all that out ahead of time? It's like how did that all sort of play out?
Yeah, I think that the earliest realization we had when we were putting this together is you can't have a properly functioning, transparent system with 7 or 8 different variables that are at play, because from a seller's perspective, from a buyer's perspective, the way people value certain things can change even on offer night, right? Like an offer with a condition could be way less valuable than an offer without one, but what is that in dollars and cents? Right. So in the auctions, the only variable is the price. Everything else is it's basically predictated. What we do in the auction page for the time that it's listed and leading up to the auction, the actual agreement of purchase and sale and all the supporting documentation is there for download by either the agent or their client. The Schedule A, which would be any conditions or terms, is already pre-populated. Generally speaking, depending on the property and the market it's in, we will have firm offers, and that's what you're bidding on. So you had mentioned inspections. We'll always do a pre-list inspection and make that available as part of the auction page as well. So home inspection is not a condition that would be included.
Mhm.
However, if somebody wanted to bring their own inspector as they might with an offer date, they would be allowed to do that the same way.
Sure.
Um, things like closing date typically will have a window. So it won't be like
Mhm.
it's June 15th to anybody who bids. It might be any weekday, non-holiday between 60 and 90 days or 30 and 90 days. And as long as
Sure.
you fall within that, that's what you're
Mhm.
agreeing to. The deposit is standard for everybody. So we don't create a totally insane number. You know, if it's a $500,000 property, we're not asking for a 20% deposit. It's
Right.
normally 3 to 5%. That's standard.
Mhm.
And it's delivered the same way as it would be. So it would be 24 hours, bank draft or wire and all that
Sure.
stuff. And then really the agreement itself, it's populated with everything but the buyer's name and the price and the closing date. And
Mhm.
everything else is there. So they know what they're signing ahead of time. They can ask questions ahead of time. And
Mhm.
from a seller's perspective, the guesswork about what the best offer is, the nerves
Mhm.
about will this even go through once it's over are
Mhm.
addressed. And it's really, even like you said, for the agents who might typically be negotiating or going back and saying you didn't win and all that, they're also sitting back and just literally watching a ticker because the legwork is done leading up to the auction.
Mhm.
And then it's just let people go and go to their comfort level as high as
Right.
they're willing to go.
And then is there time limits, or is it just basically like you said, you start it and as long as it's still going, it just kind of keeps on going kind of thing?
Yeah, this has been a bit of a moving target for us. The first auction we ever did when we really didn't know what we were doing, we had it open for 3 days because we figured people
Okay.
would log in and they'd bid and it would be this
Right.
party. And for that first auction, we had CBC following us. So this was like in almost a response piece to the marketplace
Right.
story. And I remembered like it was yesterday. It was early 2017 or not early, mid 2017, and we rented a boardroom. We had our client coming. It was going to be this party, and 2.5 days had elapsed. There was an hour and a half left in the auction, and there were still no bids, not a single bid. And
Mm.
at this point, we had the camera in our face, and they're asking questions like, "If you get no bids, is this a humongous failure? Like, will you quit? Are you done?" And we didn't really know, but the reason was, and it stands to, I understand it now. I mean, if you've ever been on eBay or any of those things,
Mm.
you don't want to be bidding until the last minute. Like, why would you bid 3 days early when someone can
Yeah.
just step in whenever? So we did end up selling that property. There was the first bid with 5 minutes left in the auction after we had sweat dozens of pounds off prior to that.
Yes.
But the way it works now is typically our auction will open at 5 o'clock and
Mhm.
it'll be set to close at 8. So it's a 3 hour window.
Mhm.
And different from eBay, if somebody bids in the last 3 minutes, the clock extends. So this
Okay.
isn't a situation where if somebody bids, as long as I'm the one in at the last second, I'm going to win, because that's how eBay works. It doesn't
Right.
extend. It's if you are the last one in, you win. We're working in our sellers' interest, and their interest is getting as much money as possible. And then from
Mhm.
a buyer's perspective, I wouldn't want to feel like I lost it because my click wasn't fast enough. Like, if I'm willing to
Right.
go higher, I want the opportunity to do that. So for that reason, we see most of our auctions extend to closer to 8:30 because there's a
Mm.
couple people who kind of go back and forth at the end until someone finally
Sure.
waves the white flag and it's done for a full 3 minutes of no bidding.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense. Like I said, I'm very familiar. It's been a while since I've been on eBay, but once upon a time, I used to put a bunch of, like I said, I'm a geek with comic books and stuff, so I used
Mm.
to auction off a ton of stuff. And yeah, you are completely right. Like, you get the eBay thing that's up for a week, and nobody does anything for 6 3/4 days, and then
Right.
finally everybody shows up. And it's like, okay, I guess I want it. So yeah, I totally understand that perspective as well. So in terms of, like you said, you're working in the seller's best interest and all that sort of stuff, because one of the things that's coming out, and I know we've kind of discussed this a little bit too, is that there is a big call in the media for these more transparent, open bidding systems, whether it's an auction or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
in the hopes that it will calm down the prices in the market. Now, I've seen auctions, and I've very rarely seen auctions tell people not to spend money. Like,
Right.
generally speaking, they get people more excited, and they sort of get in there. And I'm guessing, like, what is your take on all that? Like, do you, like, from a seller's perspective, if I thought that was the case, I'd be really reluctant to even try it.
Yep.
But I don't think that's what's happening. And then, like, what has been your experience? Because I know you've completed a bunch of these successfully. Like I mentioned to everybody before I brought you on, just recently with a friend of ours, friend of the show, Jessica Hellard off in Kingston. You partnered with her so you've got your own on the block realty, but you partnered with her at Remax. So this is something that you're willing to do in partnership with agents if they want to make it available to their clients. So what has been your experience in terms of pricing? Are you still hitting the market pricing? Are you still getting all that for your sellers, or how's that playing out?
Yeah, this to me especially now is it's the biggest misnomer in the media. It's something that I'm pretty vocal about out there, in that it I think it's an exaggeration for me to say it couldn't be farther from the truth, but it's definitely not the right way to look at open bidding. Open bidding is far from the solution to an affordability problem. If anything, like you said, it is pushing the envelope on pricing, potentially even higher. Because really all it is it's keeping all the buyers who are frustrated with blind bidding, it's keeping all of them at the table, and it's giving people the trust in the system that they can actually go as high as they're willing to go without thinking that, they don't really, when somebody says try again or can you go any higher, some buyers don't want to go as high, to your point, like, am I going 300,000 higher than the next bid? Is this really what I need to spend? And so it's not always going to get more money than blind bidding. And we, as you said, we don't do all of our listings with auctions, and it's not auctions or not. We do blind offer dates as our brokerage as well. However, it is a situation where what we've seen in our experience in almost all of the most recent auctions is that the price is outdoing the blind bidding comps in the same areas. So Jessica's was an example of that, where her price just blew out of the water what a blind offer date would have done. That's according to her. Like, she gave us what her expectation was.
Sure.
We just did one in Burlington a couple months ago. It's the same thing. You get 60 bids on a property, and emotion takes over the same way it does in a blind bidding war. But when you can see the number in front of you and you say to yourself, okay, if I go up just another $1,000, I'm in the lead. It's a lot easier when you can trust the process to just say, okay, let's do it. Let's go up another 1,000. And all it takes is two people. As long as there's more than one person who are in that boat, the price continues to go up. And what it does do, so the problem it does address is fairness and transparency. Affordability, no.
No.
I mean, it at least doesn't make things cheaper, but it does allow people to have a trust in the process and know that it's fair to buyers and to the seller, that nobody has to be throwing darts.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I hadn't really thought about it that way before. With the buyer side, is that there are a lot of buyers who, like you said, we take them out, and we've been really, losing out on offers here and there, and they've become tired of the process. For sure, you do get buyer fatigue after a while, but they're also distrusting of the process too, right? Because now they're seeing the prices jumping, and they don't know. Like you said, you're saying we think we need to bid another 10,000 more or 20,000 more. We think this will do it, and then they'll go ahead and do it, and yet find out that there's someone still yet higher. And so they've just decided, you know what, I don't even want to participate in this anymore, because it is that sort of guessing game to a certain extent. And if you can I can see how, like, if you know what the previous bid was, and you can make that informed decision that, I do want to bid a little bit higher, and I know that there is a legitimate person that I'm competing with. That person didn't bid 500 and I threw in 600. I kind of know, and then they'd be, you bring more buyers to the table because they're more willing to participate in that sort of a system. And that ultimately, like you said, would drive the prices even higher, because the affordability thing, I don't think, like you said, it's not a function of the blind bidding or open bidding process. It's a function of market forces like supply and demand, interest rates, 100%. And employment. Like, does your area suddenly have the opportunity for a lot of employment? A ton of people are going to want to move there, and the supply, if it doesn't keep up with the demand, prices are going to go through the roof. Doesn't matter if you do a blind bid, which is the current sort of standard or a common thing to do, or if you just opt for the open bidding system. If you've got and I think, like you said, it might actually push it a bit higher if you've got more confident buyers who are willing to participate in the process. So now you've got, like you said, 60 different potential bidders versus 10 different potential bidders. I can't see.
And from the buyer's agent's perspective too, like, it's frustrating to try to coach someone on what they're supposed to offer. right? Because
Yep.
we don't know either what the number is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had situations where I'm giving advice, but I can't be confident other than
Hmm.
my valuation of the property and saying,
Yeah.
listen, up to here is fair. If you want to go past that, we can, but like my advice is this. But then they'll ask,
Hmm.
well, what do you think it's going to go for? And
Yep.
absolutely, we can make an educated guess, but when that's in front of us as agents, we can
Hmm.
focus on what we can control in giving
Right.
advice that's
Yeah.
based on fact in front
Yeah.
of you.
And a
Um,
system that's you know how it's going to go, because in the current system, the blind type bidding system, where you don't know what other people's offers are and all that other sort of stuff, um, everybody plays it a bit of a different way. Like, you'll be involved in one where the agents will tell you, like, put your best offer in first time around. We're just going to pick the best offer, and that's it. You're done. And then other agents will tell you, well, put it in, and then maybe we'll give you a chance to make it better depending on what the seller wants to do. And if the top two are really, really close, maybe we'll give you another chance. But at least this way,
right.
you know what the system is going to be. Because like you said, I've advised clients where, like, we look at a neighborhood and we're looking at like the most recent comparable sales, like we normally do. And we can see that, over the last 2-3 weeks, these type of homes have been selling for about $480,000. And the market is very busy, so we know we're probably going to have to pay a bit of a premium. So we're talking about putting in an offer somewhere between around 480, possibly up to 500,000 for this type of property. And then someone shows up and gives them 580,000 right off the gate. And you're like, you look like a complete idiot, because it's like, well, I don't know how that happened or why we didn't have a chance to counter that. Or if the buyer had the money, it's like, you don't really know how to explain it. But then if everything is open, you can see, well, that happened. And again, the clock would extend, and you have at least the opportunity to say, like, is this something that we want to be involved in or not? Like, do we
Right.
have the funds to do it? Versus you just get a phone call saying, yeah, no, sorry, you're done for today. Like, without having that opportunity at all. At least it's a predictable system is what I think I'm in a roundabout way trying to get around. Because any other system, it sort of goes by the whims of the seller. You're supposed to register by 5:00. No other offers after 5. We're presenting at 8. Suddenly 6 offers show up at 7. The seller wants to see them, and now everything's out of the window kind of thing.
That's right. Well, what do you do? And that's for us. I mean, the only information that's protected is the privacy of the individuals who are bidding, right? We're not releasing identities of people, but everything else is like, the terms as someone who's participating. So you don't have to worry about, is there something I don't see? And you also don't have to worry about going up to your maximum, even if you put that in at the front end. The person who put in 580 in your example could put that at the beginning, and they might end up winning the property for 530 if no one bids higher than 529 or whatever. So there's a lot of different moving parts. And for us, the other big thing, other than the whole affordability and it's not case, is also that this isn't for everybody. This isn't the answer to real estate. You mentioned, I mean, we do about 10% of our listings, if that, by auction. But we believe in choice. We believe in giving, consumers on the buyer and seller side the opportunity to see that there's more than one way to skin a cat in this industry, even though there kind of still isn't. Like, we're there. I mean, there really isn't. A lot of people don't even know this exists, but every time we do one, for us, it's just most important that we're educating consumers, the agents. We need the support and partnership with other agents on both sides of the transaction to make this work. This initially was looked at as this big, we're coming in and we're trying to kill the industry, or we're trying to shut agents out of the process and that sort of thing. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. If we don't have the participation of agents representing buyers and helping explain the process, it fails right out of the gate. And so that right now is what's most important to us, is like talks like this, which I appreciate, just being able to have whatever platform we can to talk about it. It's the only way people are going to learn more that this is maybe a viable option that's out there that could address some of the issues in the industry.
Yeah. And it's like you say, it's just overcoming that knowledge gap, I guess is what it is. Because I'll see it in my own association, sort of private Facebook groups and whatnot, when the idea of whether it's an open auction idea like this or anything that's sort of non-traditional, I'll say, or non-standard, or people just aren't familiar with, pops up, it's immediately the boogeyman, right? It's
Right.
immediately the thing that's going to put me out of business, and I don't want to change, and I don't want to have to do this. And it's getting around that idea with anything, whether it's like using Zoom and DocuSign, or whether it's open bidding, or whether it's whatever it happens to be, to understand that it's just another tool in the toolbox, right? It's
Right.
another way that we can do things, and more options we can make available to our sellers. And it's a different business model, and it just creates that competition within the industry, which is healthy for any industry, to just give people, like you said, options about how they want to go about doing things. And again, it's a pretty straightforward process. Your sellers are very transparent and saying, look, here's what our expectations are in terms of the offer, like closing date, and you have the opportunity to go do a home inspection if you like, and everything else, but here are the terms that you have to agree to if you want to buy this house. And then from
Yep.
there on, it's like, knock yourself out. What do you want to pay for it? Right? Like,
Right.
what do you, because at some point, like you said, market value is dependent on a couple things. It's like what the seller thinks it's worth, and it's also what the buyer thinks it's worth, like what value they see on it. And if they have the resources and they're willing, and they see either the current opportunity or future opportunity, because they're going to raise a family and they need a bigger house. So for them, it's worth a lot more than somebody who's not going to be doing that. Right. So it's that nebulous little thing that we're trying to wrap our heads around. But no, this is fantastic. I appreciate talking about all new ideas and stuff like that, especially when it comes to real estate. And this, I think, makes things better. I think it improves things. It gives you that extra transparency. It definitely helps, I think, raise the bar for the people who are interested in going about it this way. I don't know. I like it. So that's all I can really say.
That's good. It's we will, and we expect it, and we continue to get all kinds of, not pushback, but there's natural questions. Sure. and like you said, the boogeyman approach, we've had it since day one. It has definitely come down quite a bit the more we're learning and growing. So we've adapted and changed the platform quite a bit to address anything that we agree might not be perfection in this process.
Well, like anything,
but
you learn as you go. You correct mistakes, you correct course when you figure out things work better a certain way versus another way, right? And it's the evolution of everything, right? And again, from the agent side, again, you work with people who are working with real estate agents, like a regular transaction. So there's cooperation with other real estate agents and all that sort of stuff. That's just, it's all in the confirmation of cooperation in the APS. So it's all, again, transparent there. So there's no threat to the agent, like you're going to soak up all their buyers, take away all their clients, kind of a thing.
That's right. And we actually go so far as, because this is another question we get, where people say, well, can someone bid without an agent? That's a common question we get. And the short answer is yes.
Sure.
However, we've changed the platform to the point where when somebody registers, if they don't have an agent, it first asks them, and if they say no, it doesn't just let them register. It gives them a very detailed explanation of why it's a bad idea. It tells them, you're not going to have a client relationship with us. There's no collateral agreement, so you're not getting a deal on commission if you think you're getting that. And you're not going to have advice of a professional. So go out and get one. And that's what it tells them. And then it's like, are you sure? And so, we've never sold an auction to someone who wasn't represented. So we have had a couple people bid unrepresented, but the intent of this is not to be double ending deals or anything like that, because it's a choice that the consumer can make, but they're not at an advantage unless they just really feel they've done all the research and they can do it and all that.
And ultimately, in the blind bidding process, the regular process, people can bid on, like, submit an offer unrepresented. Like, this is not something that's particular to the bidding process. Like in regular everyday listing, somebody could knock on the door and say, yes, I want to buy this house, and I don't have an agent, I don't have a whatever, but I'd like to buy this house. And we have different means of doing it. We have a customer service type agreement, so we can assist them with the paperwork, but ultimately they're keeping their own counsel. And they're doing all that sort of stuff. So it's really not any different than that type of situation. And like you said, for the most part, if people are doing that kind of thing, hoping that, if going directly to the listing agent, and it's the trope in our industry, that's going to give them a deal somehow. They're going to have some sort of inside track or get a discount. From my experience, it doesn't work. I know, from what I've heard, I like to, if I have to do the work, I like to get paid. It's just how I approach it.
plus with this we couldn't advise them or give them the inside track anyway, because all the cards are on the table for everybody. So we can't
exactly
say, well, if you just bid 800, you'll get it. Well, no, like the number is the number. So
yeah, everybody's going to see what you put on the table, and somebody might outbid you. We don't know.
Right.
So yeah, it actually, you know what, from that perspective, I think it does help in terms of any of those shifty type practices, which was some of the stuff that the marketplace piece was talking about in that, where like I said, sometimes you'll put in an offer and you won't get that second chance to bid. You just get told, sorry, you lost. And there are situations that have happened. We all know about it, where again, somebody had their own client and just told their own client, just give them an extra 1,000 on top of this best bid and we'll give it to you, and done. And they're doing a disservice to their sellers, even though they think that they're helping this buyer, because there were people that were willing to bid more. So I think this transparent process just kind of does away with that, because it's just not possible, right? The bid's on the table. And if you want to bid more, you can. And you can't give anybody more or less favoritism because of it, right? It is what it is, right?
That's it.
Everybody can see it.
It's interesting because in theory, like logic would say, if the buyer wins, the seller has to lose, and vice versa. Like you can't have a world, even though market forces, you meet in the middle, that's the ideal. But this is the situation that allows for that meeting in the middle, where everybody can be confident they are. The seller knows everyone's coming. They're seeing everything in real time, and the buyers don't feel that they're missing out. They've got the opportunity to put their best foot forward. And so every transaction is different. So again, it's not the be all and end all answer, but when it works, it really works. It really goes well.
Again, it's a tool in the toolkit, right? I mean, it's one of the things that we use to solve problems. And generally the problem is somebody wants to sell their house. And how do we solve that? Like, how do we approach it? What kind of tools do we have available to help them achieve whatever their goals are? And I agree. I don't subscribe to the idea that real estate is adversarial. Although that makes for great television. that makes for great, pounding the fists on the table and saying, your house is garbage. I don't think it's worth this much. That kind of stuff, like that never works. It is, we're facilitators for the most part. We're dealing in contract law, not in like litigation. We're just trying to get two willing parties to figure out if they can agree on terms and if they can agree on pricing and all other stuff. And if they can, we make the deal, we make the contract, and they go on. And if they can't, they go their separate ways and work with somebody else. And here, it's just a much more transparent way of doing it. All the cards are on the table up front. You know what you're getting into. You know everything that's happening, like you said, in real time. And you can make an informed decision as if you want to continue to participate, or if you just want to sit back and watch and see where it goes. Right? That's pretty straightforward. So if, before we start talking about other fun stuff, to get in touch with you, you're at On the Block Realty. What's the easiest ways to get in touch with you for either agents who are interested in partnering or potential clients who want to kind of explore these options with you, or traditional real estate options with you?
Sure. You can follow us for sure on social media at Get On The Block. You can follow me at Steinfeld Says if you want to see food and whatnot. And our websites are getontheblock.com is our brokerage, and otbauctions.com is the auction platform itself. So On the Block is an auction house and a brokerage. So it's two different companies, but on otbauctions.com, you can actually do a demo there 24 hours a day and do a fake auction. If you want to see how it works, you can go and buy yourself a fake house. And that's always running, which is kind of a cool way to see the process. And by all means, at either of those two websites, you can reach out to us, and we're happy to answer questions about the process anytime.
Cool. So for anybody who's watching the replay of this one, all this contact information will be showing up on the screen somewhere or other, so you can write it all down. But that's awesome. I didn't know you could do the demo. I'm going to go and try that later, because for sure that sounds pretty awesome. So
hopefully
we like to end. I appreciate you being here. I know everybody's really crazy busy. I know you said Katie's trying to maintain the chaos in your house.
She's here. She's somewhere. She's here in spirit. I should have put like one of those pictures, like with the throw over her head here.
Little emojis floating around. And fortunately, everybody stayed away from me during this too, so that's been good. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but we do like to end, like I mentioned to you, like just mentioning a shout out to a local business, either online or local to you or something like that. Just somebody local to you that you really like and that you really think should get a shout out. And I think you and I are kind of on the same wavelength with this kind of thing. So I'll let you tell me about yours first, and then I'll tell you about mine.
Sure. Well, we're in Vaughan here, and my next door neighbor actually, right before all of this pandemic junk began, he opened up a Smokes Poutineery franchise right down the street from us at Major Mackenzie and Weston. And if you haven't been to Smokes, I'm not going to talk up the poutine too much right now because I know we're about to get there. But he has put together an awesome business there. They're just from a customer service, from a place to go that's actually still open that you can go eat at now. It is just, it's a bonus that he happens to be a guy who I really admire and get to see almost every day out in front of our house. But that Smokes is spectacular. If you're ever in Vaughan near Major Mac and Weston, go pay it a visit. Try any and all of their 40 or 50 types of poutine because it's awesome. And they play some really good music there too. If you've been to a Smokes, like they're all about the classic rock. It's spectacular.
Dad rock. So we're good. You and I fit. It's awesome. So I'll give a little shout out to my little local guy here in Bimbrook too. He's not a poutineery, but he is a Greek food place called Paros here in Bimbrook. Bimbrook's not big, so you'll be able to find him. He's right next to their Freshco. But you come out this way, and I was telling Daniel, like, their poutine is fantastic. They do slightly non-traditional. They don't do the big fat fries like the Quebec style poutine, but they do these thin, crispy fries. So it's a little bit different, but super awesome. But they do a shawarma poutine, which is just like, it's enough for like 4 people, this thing. It's ridiculous, but it's good. So one day when the world is not on fire and things have calmed down a little bit, we will return and we will have a poutine war. So this will happen. Either I'm going out that way or you're coming this way, and we're going to a meeting of the minds, and we're going to have some sort of a food/poutine war. So everybody should look forward to that.
Only fair. That's the best kind of war to have. So
that's the, like
there are no losers in a war like that.
No, just my waistline. That's it. But like I said, that's the only kind of war that I'm interested in. Food battles. I'm good.
All right, I'll start training now. I'll start training.
I know I got to go on a diet for like 6 months just so I can go and belt. But I do appreciate you being here. Say hi to Katie for us. Like I said, all the information will be up on the screen for anybody who's interested. And if you do have any further questions, we got a bunch of people watching. But if you have any questions while you're watching, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or on Facebook, put the questions in the comments. We'll try to circle back with Danny and Daniel and Katie and try to get answers for all that kind of stuff, or put you in touch with them directly. And yeah, if you're interested and curious about how this works and how it might work for you, reach out. And you never know, this might be the thing that helps you sell your home. So perfect. Thanks, Daniel. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate it, Tony. Take care.
Take care. So that was our friend and real estate colleague, I guess, different brokerage, but real estate colleague, Daniel Steinfeld from On the Block Realty. Yeah, as we mentioned, just real estate auctions have been in the news lately as a more transparent way. Because buyers are getting really frustrated with the entire process, not knowing what the competing offers are, feeling that they potentially may have overpaid, or losing bids and saying to themselves, like, I would have been willing to pay that extra bit of money to get that house if only I had known. So that's the other side of it too. So it kind of goes both ways. But as Daniel mentioned, it's not the solution to the out of control pricing in the real estate market. Lack of supply, low interest rates, all these other factors play into this kind of thing. So it's not a magic bullet that's sort of going to calm the real estate industry down, as being reported in a lot of media outlets and that sort of thing. But it is another tool in the toolbox, as we like to say, to help our home sellers realize their potential, their dreams, and what it is they want to achieve, and give buyers the confidence in the process so they're willing to participate and everybody can feel like there's nothing weird or shifty going on. So again, not the solution for everyone, but definitely a very good option for people who are interested. And yeah, try poutine. If you have a good local poutine place, let me know. I would love to come out there and have a poutine war with you. I'm always willing. But thank you all for tuning in. We went a little bit longer than usual, but I do appreciate y'all. I love you all to death. You know I do. It's the long weekend, the May 2-4 weekend here in Canada. The weather in Ontario is overall looks good. Here in Hamilton, we're breaching 30 degrees Celsius every day, Saturday and Sunday. It's already over 30 degrees here today on Friday. So we're looking at potentially thunderstorms all weekend, which is not great. But traditionally, this is the weekend that, once we get past the May 2-4 weekend, everybody really starts putting their plants and flowers and things in the ground, because it's really the danger of frost is gone, and things start popping up for summer. So this is the weekend to kind of clean your garages out, plant your flowers and get them all, let the thunderstorm water them for you, and get ready for the summertime. Have your barbecues, enjoy the long weekend. And we will see you again next week when I have my good friend and colleague Christine Kemp from Peterborough, from the Kawartha Lakes region, to talk about cottage and recreational properties. So look forward to that next week. And in the meantime, like I said, I do love you all. Thanks for tuning into the Lunchbox, and I will see you all again very, very soon.